Greetings, my scattered sisters and brothers in the Lord. I don't know where you might be scattered today, but I know that the Lord is with you and that the Lord has whatever you need for this day. We are moving forward in the Gospel of John. Jesus and his disciples have left Jerusalem and now they are in the Judean countryside, and they are in the same region where John the Baptist is baptizing. And we read that Jesus and his disciples started baptizing, and that Jesus and his disciples, their baptismal ministry is growing, and John's baptismal ministry is diminishing. And so John's disciples come to him and they're kind of complaining that Jesus and his disciples are baptizing more people than John and his disciples. And John's response is really significant. First, John tells his own disciples that a person can only receive that which is given them from heaven. In other words, the success of a person's ministry ultimately depends upon God and what God is doing. And so John's not too disturbed. Actually, we're going to see that he's rejoicing, but he recognizes that the fact that he has any followers at all, it's because of God, not because of him. That true success in ministry is because of God. And that's important for us to remember. Sometimes we can get pretty frustrated. We can see somebody else's ministry growing. We can find that ours isn't growing enough, or we don't feel like very much is happening. But to remember that ultimately no one can receive anything except what is given them from heaven, that when it comes to ministry, true success in ministry, it's ultimately God's work. And God is the one who appoints the fruit. God is the one who gives the increase in ministry. Second thing John tells his disciples is that he is actually rejoicing because he's heard Jesus' voice. He sees that the one that he's been preparing the way for has come. And so he's rejoicing that Jesus is the groom and that John really is just a friend of the groom. And so he's excited, filled with joy that people are going to Jesus. Again, I think that's so important for us to pick up on, that we need to rejoice when we see other people going to Jesus, even in other ministries. Now, I know we rejoice when people come to Jesus in our ministries, but we need to make sure that we're also rejoicing when people go to Jesus in the ministry of others. Maybe just a side note here. What has John excited? What has him rejoicing is seeing that people are going to Jesus. I think sometimes we have a tendency to attract people to ourselves rather than calling them to Jesus. And it's really important that in our ministries, whether we're, official clergy, a pastor, or whether it's a lay ministry, volunteer youth worker, whatever it might be, that in our ministries, we're actually proclaiming Jesus, and so that people are being drawn to Jesus rather than simply to ourselves. Constant challenge. Third thing, John not only rejoices that people are going to Jesus, but John has this as kind of a final statement to his disciples, that Jesus must become greater and John must become less. In his words, he must become greater, I must become less. So true in ministry and in the whole Christian walk, that Jesus is the one who is to become greater. Jesus is the one who is to be followed. Jesus is the one who is to be made known, not us. And while that's a statement that's so true about ministry, that I need to make sure that my ministry is focused on Jesus, that I'm lifting Jesus up rather than lifting myself up, it's also true in terms of just the daily walk, that Jesus must become greater, I must become less. My life, my will, my self-centeredness must become more and more surrendered to Jesus. so that I really am a Jesus first person, a Jesus centered person, not self centered. He must become greater. I must become less. So wherever you are today, hold fast to those words. Jesus must become greater. I must become less. And whatever issues you're dealing with, Jesus must become greater. I must become less. And in whatever ministry the Lord has appointed for you, Jesus must become greater. I must become less. Have a wonderful day. God bless you. And let Jesus be the greater one, for he truly is.